The people who lived through World War II didn't have the luxury of excess. Fuel was rationed, winters were unforgiving, and yet across Europe and parts of North America, families inside simple log cabins stayed remarkably warm, using far less firewood than most homes burn today. That wasn't luck. It was design, discipline, and a deep understanding of heat that many modern builders have quietly abandoned. If you're into survival history or practical off-grid living, this is one of those overlooked lessons that still holds serious value. Because the truth is, those cabins weren't just primitive shelters. They were highly efficient thermal systems. And once you understand what made them work, you'll start seeing just how much heat we waste today. The secret started with how logs were chosen and prepared. Not all logs are equal, and World War II-era builders knew it. They favoured dense, slow-growing timber like pine or spruce from colder regions, where tight growth rings meant better insulation. Freshly cut logs were rarely used. Instead, wood was seasoned properly to reduce moisture, because wet wood shrinks and creates gaps that leak heat. The real trick, though, was in how the logs were shaped. Builders didn't just stack round logs. They often flattened the top and bottom surfaces to improve contact between layers. This reduced air gaps dramatically. Less airflow meant less heat escaping. If you were applying this today, you'd skip the temptation of using raw, uneven logs straight from a chainsaw. Even a simple hand planing or milling step can make a huge difference in how tightly your walls seal. The way logs were stacked created natural insulation barriers. The stacking method mattered just as much as the wood itself. Instead of relying purely on thickness, World War II builders used interlocking corner joints that minimized exposed seams. Saddle notches and dovetail joints weren't just for structural strength. They reduced wind infiltration. Between the logs, they used chinking made from whatever was available: clay, moss, straw, or even animal hair mixed with mud. This wasn't just filler. It acted as a flexible sealant that expanded and contracted with temperature changes, maintaining a tight barrier. A modern equivalent would be using natural or synthetic chinking materials, but applying them generously and correctly. Most people under-apply, thinking it's cosmetic. Back then, it was survival. Cabin size and ceiling height played a critical role in heat retention. One of the biggest differences between World War II cabins and modern homes is scale. Cabins were compact, with low ceilings that kept heat concentrated where people actually lived. Heat rises, and in a small vertical space, it doesn't have far to go before it radiates back down. Large open spaces might look appealing today, but they are heat traps in the worst way. World War II builders understood that a smaller volume of air is easier to warm and maintain. If you're designing or modifying a space, even adding a lower ceiling section or loft barrier can help trap heat more effectively. It's a simple structural tweak with a big payoff. The wood stove wasn't just placed anywhere. It was usually positioned centrally, allowing heat to radiate evenly in all directions. In some cases, builders added stone or brick around the stove to act as a thermal mass. These materials absorbed heat during the fire and slowly released it long after the flames died down. This meant fewer logs burned overnight while still maintaining warmth. You can replicate this today by surrounding a stove with heat-retaining materials like stone or brick. Even a small thermal wall behind a stove can extend heat output significantly without burning extra fuel. Now, floors and foundations were insulated more than you'd expect, honestly. A lot of heat loss happens through the ground, and WWII builders didn't ignore that fact. Cabins were often raised just slightly off the ground or built on stone foundations that reduced direct contact with the cold earth. Floors were layered with wood, straw, or other insulating materials, which made a real difference. These days, modern builders sometimes focus heavily on walls and roofs, but, forget the floor entirely. Adding insulation beneath floorboards or even just simple rugs in strategic areas can noticeably reduce heat loss. Windows were small, deliberate, and strategically placed. Glass was pretty scarce during the war, so windows were kept small. But, you see, that limitation actually turned into an advantage. Smaller windows meant less heat escaping. Placement was also intentional, often facing directions that maximize sunlight during the day. Curtains or shutters were used at night to trap heat inside. If you're applying this today, thermal curtains or double glazing can mimic the same effect. Even closing off unused windows in winter can help maintain internal temperature. Daily habits inside the cabin made all the difference, really. Efficiency didn't stop at construction. People living in these cabins understood heat as a resource. Doors were opened sparingly and fires were managed carefully, not constantly fed. Sleeping areas were often grouped together to conserve warmth. There's a lesson here that modern living tends to ignore. Behavior matters just as much as design. Simple habits like closing off unused rooms, wearing layered clothing indoors, or timing when you heat your space can drastically reduce wood consumption. So, what modern builders consistently get wrong? Today, there's a tendency to overcompensate with bigger heating systems instead of smarter design. Large spaces, poor ceiling, and inefficient layouts mean more wood, more cost, and less comfort. WWII cabins prove that efficiency isn't about having more, it's about losing less. The combination of tight construction, smart material use, compact design, and intentional living created homes that stayed warm with minimal fuel. That's not outdated knowledge. It's practical wisdom that still works. Whether you're building an off-grid cabin, upgrading a rural home, or just trying to cut heating costs, these principles are directly usable. Focus on ceiling gaps before adding more heat. Think about space, not just insulation. Use materials that store heat, not just block cold. And pay attention to how you actually use your space day to day. These aren't expensive upgrades. Most are low-cost adjustments that rely more on awareness than money. And that's what made WWII cabins so effective. They were built by necessity, but refined by experience. If you found this breakdown useful and want more deep dives into forgotten survival techniques and historical engineering that still works today, make sure to subscribe and share this with someone who's serious about living smarter, not harder.